Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for today's edition, this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up on the warning advisory map, we've got a couple areas here. Up over the northwestern Brooks Range, there's a wind chill advisory out for tonight, through tonight, or until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. For northeast winds gusting to 30 miles an hour and equivalent temperatures at about 50 degrees below zero. The other advisory is dense fog advisory out for tonight for the greater Anchorage area for fog, occasionally reducing visibility to less than a quarter of a mile, and that again lasts until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. On the satellite, you can see a couple of systems here moving due east just south of the Queen Charlotte Islands. Some clearing occurring over the southeast coast today, then some more moisture up here to the north, and then clearing out again along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Pretty clear skies here over south central Alaska as well, and a front coming across the northern Bering Sea and extending southeastward into Bristol Bay, and that kind of dragging across Kodiak Island and inching its way to the northeast. More clouds here over the western interior areas, and kind of a variably cloudy day over the eastern interior. And back out to the west, a lot of showers, snow showers from Shemya all the way to the southeast Bering Sea and rolling into Bristol Bay today, the Alaska Peninsula, and then just kind of isolated, scattered activity down along the Aleutians. On the chart today, there's that front brought the snow across the northern Bering Sea into the southwest interior, again moving northeastward throughout the day, trailing across Kodiak Island with a little bit of moisture there, and then the snow showers to the south of that, kind of enhanced along this trough here, rotating into the Pribilof Islands, and that extending all the way out to another low out there towards Shemya and Attu. Otherwise, areas of snow here from McGrath up to Galena, Kaltag, Huslia, and Ruby, all in that light snow and cloud pattern. Otherwise, the interior, kind of a partly to mostly day today with areas of flurries around. Light snow also from Northway down into the eastern Copper River Basin, and some scattered snow showers here from the North Gulf Coast due to this 991 millibar low there south of Yakutat, and kind of some snow showers in over the northern Panhandle, just isolated rain showers down to the south. Looking at for tonight's forecast, still some very isolated rain or snow showers here over the Panhandle areas. Most of the activity will be off the coast, so it looks pretty dry from the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, up through the eastern interior. Again, partly to mostly cloudy skies. Some areas of flurries here, Koyukuk Valley down and along the western slopes here of the western Alaska Range. And then areas of fog flurries for south central Alaska, especially around Cook Inlet and the Anchorage area. Snow showers, numerous snow showers continue to roll into the Bristol Bay area and the Alaska Peninsula, extend back out toward the Pribilof Islands. Mostly cloudy, some areas of light snow, mostly in the form of flurries here over the southwest interior. Mostly clear up across the Seward Peninsula and into the North Slope, where temperatures are down to the minus 35 degree range this afternoon. And then some flurries up along the Arctic coast with areas of fog. And then the next big storm bringing gale force winds in later tonight with precipitation in toward the central Aleutian area, excuse me, into the central Aleutians. See tomorrow that low lifts northward, north of Amchitka Island, and there are gale and storm warnings out here for the Aleutians, especially along in advance of the front and then back with the main low. Pretty good northwest winds on the back side of that. Snow and wind on the increase across the Pribilof Islands, rain into the eastern Aleutians, and snow changing to rain over the Alaska Peninsula areas. Pretty good day tomorrow here for Bristol Bay and the southwest coast. Mostly clear skies, light winds, and that'll extend all the way up into the northwest valleys there with some possible clearing even as far east as the Koyukuk Valley, but from the northeast interior back down in toward the Susitna Valley. Looks mostly cloudy, areas of light snow mostly north of the Alaska Range, and then back down the west side there, right into the Aleutian Range. And gusty northwest winds up to 40 miles an hour early in the day there for Kodiak Island, diminishing during the afternoon hours. And kind of breezy. Seward could see some north winds gusting to 35 miles an hour, as well as the channeled areas of Prince William Sound. And we still have a 994 millibar low there off the coast of the Panhandle, so scattered snow showers over the north, but pretty dry down to the south there. Maybe a little bit of moisture just skiffing the Prince of Wales Island coast. And up along the Arctic coast, still a lot of clouds, patchy fog, flurries, nothing significant in the way of snow. For the Thursday outlook, a lot of clear skies here over the interior. There will be some areas of low clouds around, but mostly definitely dry, mostly sunny here for south central Alaska. The North Gulf Coast looking really good in the Panhandle. Look for those north winds though. Northern Link Canal kicking up to 35 knots with higher gusts during the day, but lighter winds down to the south. Still a chance of some snow showers there from Port Alexander onto the southeast to maybe Heidelberg, possibly Klawock, but that's about it. A pretty dry day with a lot of clearing there over the Panhandle. Arctic coast, eastern north slope, some clouds, flurries, and fog in that area, but pretty good conditions, good VFR all the way out to St. Matthew Island, looking for the winds and clouds to increase. In fact, east winds picking up to 50 knots for St. Lawrence Island on Thursday as this weakening warm front moves northward and tightens the gradient up. And the trailing edge of that warm front will bring some clouds and a few flurries in over the southwest interior. Chance of rain or snow, light amounts there for Kodiak Island. That all kind of shifting up to the north. And the first low center here north of northeast of Amchitka now, or north of Adak, bringing some good northwest winds with colder air and snow showers into the western areas. Another system lifting northward, bringing pretty good wind and rain into the Alaska Peninsula with the milder temperatures and some pretty good wind gusts to go along with that. And we'll see temperatures today across the Panhandle. We're in the mostly in the 30s, all in the 30s, from 30 degrees at Yakutat, 39 at Sitka, 37 at Klawock, and a 34 degree reading both at Wrangell and Annette, 35 in Juneau today. Farther to the west, we had a 22 at Cordova, 16 in Valdez, and a -4 at Gulkana, 1 below with a little bit of light snow at Northway, -2 at Delta. Fairbanks pushed up to 0, and Anchorage and Palmer 12 degrees. Also Kenai had 12, up to 24 at Homer and Seward. Willow at 4 below, otherwise Talkeetna was 8 above, and farther to the north, temperatures fall a little farther below 0, -12 at Bettles, -29 at Atuvik, and 37 below at Umiat today, with a 35 below reading at Nuiqsut, -29 at Point Lay, with Barrow at 19 below, about the same in Kotzebue, 0 degrees at Shishmaref, -6 at Nome, and there's a 7 degree reading at Unalakleet with 4 below at McGrath, 14 this afternoon at Bethel, 28 out at Macoriac. And gosh, for the lows tonight, mid-30s or rising into the 30s there for the Pribilof Islands later tonight, mostly in the 30s here for the Aleutians, well below 0 over the central and northern interior with lows in that 30 to 40 below range for the North Slope and portions of the Arctic coast, but right along the coast mostly in the -20s. Below 0 for the Susitna Valley and down into the single numbers across the Kenai Peninsula, Bristol Bay in the teens, 20s to lower 30s for the southeast coast. And for highs tomorrow, in the 30s again here for the Panhandle, with lower 20s for the North Gulf Coast at 21 at Cordova. Valdez looking at a high of 12 above. Below 0 at Gulkana, and 10 to 20 here for south central Alaska, lower 20s for Bristol Bay, with below 0 readings into the central interior. Coldest here over the north slope and the northwest valleys. Mildest there with the incoming storminess into the central and eastern Aleutians, and those temperatures rising to 40 there for the Alaska Peninsula. For the flying weather conditions, looks like IFR here over the northern panhandle and down the east side a little bit there. Otherwise, marginal VFR all the way down to Prince of Wales Island, and then along the Alaska Range, marginal VFR with a patch of marginal VFR possible here over the Talkeetna Mountains down in toward Turnagain Arm, with marginal VFR in areas along the Arctic coast, but pretty good VFR conditions here, Kotzebue Sound down toward Nunivak Island, with the IFR conditions in advance of the front pushing across the Aleutians, not quite reaching the eastern Aleutians, and with a warm front here down to the Alaska Peninsula. Passes shaping up like this, both Anatuvik and Atigun, staying VFR again tomorrow like today, and moving on to the western Alaska Range, Lake Clark and Merrill, both VFR, but the west entrances of both of those passes will be marginal, as well as rainy, lowest on the western entrance there, otherwise VFR. Windy looks marginal tomorrow on either approach and through the pass. Isabel, though, both Isabel and Mentasta will be VFR. And Wednesday looks good for Tanita as well as Portage. Good VFR, either entrance there. And for Chilkoot and White, occasional IFR for both passes. Freezing levels here at the surface, lifting north of the Pribilofs and then coming back down to Kodiak Island, up along the coast and then off to the southeast. And then 2,000 to 4,000 feet lifting up toward the central Aleutians late tonight and early tomorrow morning. And as far as icing goes, pushing eastward and northward, spreading into the Pribilofs and overspreading the Alaska Peninsula, and then kind of extending back down over the southwest Bering and western Aleutian areas there below about 12,000 feet. Below 8,000 feet, areas of brine or mixed icing on the light side here for the northern panhandle to about Yakutat. And the winds aloft showing a jet tomorrow lifting northward as this big storm inches its way eastward across the eastern Aleutians, about 150 knots blowing right across Cape Newnham, Togiak Bay, and then diving southeast across Kodiak Island. Westerlies here through the interior areas only at about 25 to 30 knots with the main jet to the south. 9,000 foot winds, pretty light over the interior, west-northwest, 10 knots, even lighter for the Arctic coast, with 20-knot northwesterlies just off the coast of the Panhandle, and then the big winds out here to the west, 75 knots out of the south coming across the Aleutians, 40 to 55 knots over the eastern Bering Sea, then some pretty good winds coming around the backside of this low center. And for 3,000 feet, about the same on the pattern, with winds a little lighter, southerly 60 to 65 knots here coming into central eastern Aleutians, dropping back to 35 knots around False Pass. And light winds here along the southwest coast, really light winds over the central and eastern interior of the state, just 5 to 10 knots there, and pretty light here for the Panhandle, maybe up to 25 there off the southwest coast of the area, with light northerly winds, but picking up to 35 knots, especially early in the day for Kodiak Island. And with that, look for some mechanical turbulence below about 5,000 feet there, Kodiak Island, the lee side of the Aleutian Range, up the east side of the Kenai Peninsula and Prince William Sound. Pretty smooth for the southeast coast, as well as just about all of the interior. And then look for some possible severe from Adak spreading eastward to maybe on Alaska, Dutch Harbor, and those areas, that mostly below about 5,000 feet. And after the break, I'll return to look at the marine forecasts.
Coming up on Destination Tomorrow, a unique ballistic parachute system might help pilots and passengers potentially survive a catastrophic accident. And we visit the Andoya rocket range in Andenes, Norway, to find out how NASA is investigating the Northern Lights. Plus, we'll take a look back at how NASA research helped change the shape of America's air superiority in World War II. And Johnny Alonso finds out how air traffic controllers keep a watchful eye on our skies at all times. All this and more next on Destination Tomorrow.
Hello everyone, I'm Steele McGonigal.
And I'm Kara O'Brien, and welcome to Destination Tomorrow.
This program will uncover how past, present, and future research is creating today's knowledge to answer the questions and solve the challenges of tomorrow.
The Northern Lights are a celestial phenomenon that have amazed people for centuries. The scientific name for the phenomena is Aurora Borealis, which is Latin and translates into the red dawn of the north. Although they are incredible to watch, the particles that make up the auroras are actually a type of electricity that can cause electrical surges and disrupt satellite operations in space and communications here on Earth.
To better understand these problems, NASA has been working with researchers and engineers at the Andoya rocket range in Andenes, Norway. Sophisticated rockets are launched into the atmosphere to collect valuable data that might explain the secrets of the auroras.
Jennifer Pulley spoke with Dr. Sten Odenwald at the Andoya rocket range in Andenes, Norway to find out more. The Aurora Borealis, or Northern Lights, is one of the most beautiful, natural occurring phenomena known to man. These shimmering currents of light, which are normally seen near the Arctic Circle, have intrigued and inspired observers for thousands of years. Until the late 19th century, many still believed that the Northern Lights were driven by supernatural means, rather than by natural means. Although these old beliefs are intriguing, we now know that the auroras are actually caused by energized particles colliding with the Earth's magnetosphere. Until recently, the auroras had little direct impact on life here on Earth. But with almost every person on the planet now relying on satellites and electricity as part of their daily lives, the need to understand auroral activity has increased. This is because those same particles that collide with the magnetosphere to create the Northern Lights can also severely damage important satellites and cause outages in electrical power grids around the world. In an effort to better understand these events, NASA is using innovative technologies to learn more about the Northern Lights and how they affect us here on Earth. I spoke with NASA Goddard's Dr. Sten Odenwald here at the Andoya rocket range in Andenes, Norway, to find out more.
It's a very complicated process that leads to an aurora. Once you see it, the whole process is sort of hidden from view. You know, we understand a little bit about how the particles get from the outer parts of the magnetic field of the Earth and into the atmosphere, but we don't see the details, you know, how the particles go from one kind of a system into another, how they get boosted in energy. Even at this late stage, we don't exactly know what the particles are that produce the aurora. Tracking them from where they're produced and where they're energized all the way down to the atmosphere is still something of a mystery. And that's why we have satellite and rocket experiments that are trying to fill in those missing pieces of the puzzle.
To understand why it is important to study the Northern Lights, we must first understand how they work. The sun is constantly emitting streams of electrically charged particles in all directions.
This stream of charged particles is called the solar wind. Since the sun is 93 million miles away, it takes about 3 days for the particles to reach Earth. As the solar winds flow by the Earth, it causes a disturbance in the Earth's magnetosphere. This disturbance energizes currents of particles which are steered by magnetic forces towards the Earth's poles. These energized particles collide with oxygen and nitrogen atoms in our atmosphere, which produce the colorful light that we see in the aurora. Although beautiful to watch, these currents of particles are actually a form of electricity which can generate up to 800 gigawatts of electrical power. This electrical energy flowing in the upper atmosphere can cause currents to flow in the ground, producing disruptions in communication, electrical outages, and fuel leaks. The high-energy particles flowing in space that often accompany these storms can also hit satellites, damaging their sensitive electronics and creating false commands. This can wreak havoc on television, pager, and other communication services here on Earth.
NASA researchers hope to find new ways to predict not only when these storms will hit Earth, but also hope to find ways to reduce their destructive effects when they do. What are some of the tools you use to study the northern lights?
We have satellites that seem to be able to look at everything that goes on with a solar storm and the production of aurora, literally from cradle to grave. We have satellites that watch the solar surface for the big leaps of matter and energy. We've got satellites that look at the wind in between the planets to watch what that's doing. We also have satellites that are in tighter orbits to the Earth so that they can look at the poles of the Earth and see the aurora happen. They can also measure electric fields in space and magnetic fields in space. So they can also see the invisible flows of particles around the Earth. And then finally, we have rockets that go up into the aurora from the bottom at the same time that the satellites are passing overhead. So we can kind of see the physics in between, flows of particles inwards, and the rockets see the electrical fields that are set up by these things. And we get this complete picture from rockets and satellite observations.
So why is Norway such a popular place to study the northern lights?
It turns out that Norway is in a place that's very favorably located to actually see the aurora directly overhead. So you can launch the rockets directly up very quickly to get into the aurora at the time that they're changing.
Dr. Odenwald, how do you think NASA research is helping us better understand the aurora and its impact on Earth?
Well, NASA's invested an awful lot of time and effort into providing scientists with the technology and equipment they need to really make powerful and insightful discoveries about how aurora work. And that feeds into our knowledge of the environment that we live in space and how that affects human technology, our billions of dollars of satellites that we have there, the health of astronauts because of the energetic particles. It all works together. And if we can deeply understand space weather effects with the help of NASA technology, it's going to be much easier for us to operate in space, and that's the direction that we want to go as a civilization.
Auroras occur around both the northern and southern geomagnetic poles. While the northern lights are known as the aurora borealis, the southern lights are referred to as the aurora australis.
Small craft advisories for northern Lynn Canal tomorrow, and dropping back to about 15 knots out of the north for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait southeasterlies at about 20. Small craft advisories there on the south coast, otherwise northwest at 20 for the central coast, east 15 for the north side. And for Thursday, northwest winds 15 up to 25 knots here down the coastline, turning more northerly on the south coast. Gales here with gusts to 50 knots for northern Lynn Canal, and otherwise those northerly winds diminish as you head south. For the North Gulf Coast, northwest 25 to 30 knots there, northwest 20 for Prince William Sound. Light winds for northern Cook Inlet, picking up as you head south here, westerlies 30 for Kamishak Bay. Gale force westerlies for the Barren Islands, and west winds 25 to 30 knots blowing across Kodiak Island. For the Thursday outlook, Cook Inlet northeast 15 to 20 knots. Small craft advisories here for Kamishak Bay, east winds increasing to 25 knots, southwest 25, Kodiak, Barren Islands, west 25, turning northwest for the western North Gulf Coast, northeast 15 for Prince William Sound. And for the Bristol Bay coast, or for Bristol Bay, west winds 15 knots there, and then winds swinging around to the south and southeast, increasing to 30 knots tomorrow afternoon for the Alaska Peninsula. West winds 30 knots southwest of Kodiak Island. And going to Thursday, we've got southeast now, 40 to 50 knots blowing across the peninsula there. Seas up to 24 feet here on the Pacific side. South 40 knots, increasing throughout the day to 40 knots southwest of Kodiak Island. Southeast winds increasing to 25 knots for Bristol Bay. And for the Aleutians, 40 to 50 knot winds ahead of that system here for the central Aleutians, and then northerlies of 45 knots, 19-foot seas back to the west, and gale force southerlies here all the way across the eastern Aleutians. For Thursday, south to southeast winds 30 to 40 knots for the eastern Aleutians with 12 to 20-foot seas. West-southwesterlies 40 knots, and then a small area of storms here back to, well, actually from west of Adak all the way to Shemya. There are storm warnings there for 50 to 55 knot winds. And up along the southwest coast from south of Nunivak Island north 15, northeast 25 knots for St. Lawrence Island. East winds increasing to 35 knots throughout the day for the Pribilofs, seas building to 16 feet. And for the Thursday outlook, winds southeast 35 for the Pribilofs, and then we've got easterly winds 40 to 50 knots here across the northern Bering Sea and St. Lawrence Island. South of Nunivak Island, though, southeast at about 30 knots with 10-foot seas. And for the the Arctic coast, for the central coast, north 10 and kind of a variable wind direction here on the east side, but all light at about 10 knots. From Wales up to Cape Lisburne, north 20 knots, otherwise northerlies at 10 to 15. And for Thursday, west winds picking up to 20 knots here on the eastern Arctic coast, northwest 15 for the west side, and northeast winds at about 20 knots, Kotzebue Sound. For the outlook again tonight, pretty good snow showers here rolling into the Alaska Peninsula and then back out, but diminishing there for the Pribilofs. Variably cloudy skies with areas of light snow through just about all of the interior areas, and still some snow showers here over the northeast Gulf of Alaska. Next storm bringing gale force winds and snow and rain, or actually starting out as snow, changing over to rain as that thing pushes northward. And tomorrow, as it pushes north of the chain, again, the gale and storm warnings out for the area, gusts of 65 miles per hour. Rain advancing eastward here with snow and wind increasing across the Pribilofs. Pretty nice day here over the western interior areas with lighter winds, but temperatures generally below zero here, especially over the north slope. Variable clouds in the Arctic coast. Areas of light snow along the Alaska range from Windy Pass all the way down to the Aleutian Range. Scattered snow showers for the northeast Gulf, some of those catching the northern panhandle. And then for Thursday, a new system brings more gusty winds and rain here to the Alaska Peninsula with a little bit of moisture, but increasing winds all the way up to the Bering Strait. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
If you're a rural Alaskan resident, consider applying for a seat on one of the Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Councils by Friday, January 29, 2016. Applicants who have knowledge of the regional subsistence uses, customs, and traditions are needed. Council meetings serve as a forum for regional public involvement in subsistence management. Information at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.